Welcome back to the I Empower podcast, where we hear inspirational stories and then we turn that into art that reminds us to be great. This week, we are talking to the incredibly inspiring Danielle Paulo, the CEO and founder of Creative House Marketing Agency. Born in the Philippines and then migrating to the United States at the young age of 3 with her family, Danielle walks us through the events that led up to her ultimately quitting her corporate job in the middle of a pandemic and how she came about creating a woman-ran business. So if you like girl power, this is definitely the episode for you.
To me, even though I have been successful, I still get a lot of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And so I always have to tell myself every day that I wake up, like, I did this. And regardless of if people don't believe me or if there's still things I need to work on, that it's me. And I just don't want anything bad that's ever happened to me to just be like, oh, that's what knocked me down and I couldn't do it.
Thank you so much for being here with me today, Danielle. I'm super excited to talk to you about your incredible story of transformation and all the great things that you have going on. So I always like to tell my guests or tell my audience where I find my guests or where my guests reach out to me from. And you actually found me on Instagram. And I'm so honored that you messaged me and was like, I have a story to tell that I think women need to hear. And you gave me the rundown and I was like, yes, that is some girl power right there. I want to share it with the world. So I'll have you introduce yourself. Tell us all about you, Miss Danielle.
Yeah, so Danielle Paulo and I created a marketing agency about a year ago called Creative House. And just from this whole year, it just expanded so much. I really didn't think that I would start this company. It really just fell into my lap, long story short.
Yeah.
And then I just built like a woman-led business out of it. I hire females, not that I only hire them, but it just so happened that, my whole team is females. They're from different parts of the world. They're from the US, Hawaii, China, Philippines. And then I realized that when I started this business, growing up in the marketing agency, I always had a male leader and there were never really any female bosses that I had. And I realized I could be one of that. And I'm just so grateful that I get to be here now and I get to lead a really wonderful team.
Oh my gosh, that is so amazing. Like I love to hear stories like this. And so you grew up in or you were born in the Philippines and then you grew up in California. Can you tell me what brought your family here and how was it growing up in California?
Yeah, so both of my parents were in the medical field. I believe they just thought that they could, extend their careers here. I don't remember much of my life in the Philippines because I did migrate here when I was 3 years old. All I knew was just growing up in California. I lived
Yeah.
all my whole life in Orange County. And I just remembered my first early memory that I had was I was obsessed with McDonald's. I was like, what is this? Like, I just love the French fries and chicken
Yeah.
nuggets. And I learned how to speak English just by listening to Britney Spears and
Oh.
listening to NSYNC, and I was just obsessed with this culture. And then obviously I grew up to love it. I stayed here in Orange County while my dad is back in the Philippines right now. Yeah.
Very cool. And so, growing up, you're not first generation. You are actually so like you come from another culture, and so was it welcoming for you and your family when you came here? How was that?
I think my parents struggled a lot. We didn't really have any family here, and my parents had a very thick accent. And back then, I really didn't know how to speak English yet. I just remember when I was in school, I was made fun of because I looked different than my peers. I mean, I
Hmm.
went to like a predominantly like white, like elementary school and kindergarten, and
Yeah.
would always make jokes that I was like black, and I was like, no, I'm Asian, or they would make fun of my features because it was just so different from them.
Yeah.
And I just remember, why am I not like everybody else? Why am I struggling to speak like they are? And then I just always saw my parents had to work so much harder than everybody else, especially
Yeah.
my mom. Like
Right.
my mom ended up being a nurse, but she ended up having like a management team under her. And I would just remember her telling my dad growing up that she had to work so much harder when my dad had the same role, but it was easier for him because he was a male and they respected him more.
Yeah. So even at like an early young age, you started experiencing the patriarchy that goes on in America. I'm sure it's dominant in other countries as well. But just speaking for in America, how, like you said, the women get even women that are in the same role. Statistically get paid less, especially women, minority women get paid even less than the women. I mean, it's just like this trickle down effect that is unfortunate. And I'm hoping that we are moving forward. But so, I think that's important that you notice that at a young age. And then as you continued with your career, you decided, okay, like I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it how I want to do it. And the importance of women being able to do just as much, if not sometimes more than men.
Exactly.
But
I didn't
yeah,
realize I didn't realize like how that affected me until I'm older now, and I realized it was because seeing how my mom was. I really feel like I based my whole life because she was such a wonderful woman, and I got to really see what it was like for her to be so successful and for her to be an entrepreneur too, and just
yeah.
be so different.
That's beautiful. And so tell me about your endeavors. I did see that you started out as a fashion stylist and you have a degree at an art institute. So tell me about this journey, this where it started, how you got there, and then what ultimately led you to being the girl boss that you are today.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I think coming from a Filipino culture, I mean, there's always a stereotype that every Filipino, every Asian needs to be a doctor or a nurse.
Yeah.
And I just knew I wanted something different. I tried and I realized I'm completely terrified of blood or needles. So there's just no way that was going to happen for me.
Yeah.
I made a deal with my parents that if they paid for my college, like I went to an art institute, if I didn't get a full time job or a high paying job within my first year of graduating, then I would go back like to school to be a nurse or a
Right.
doctor. And because I really, really didn't want to, I focused so hard on making sure that I was successful.
Yeah.
I started out as a stylist because again, I was really interested in the arts. I didn't know what I wanted to be, like a fashion designer, a stylist. It just so happened that when I went to FITM, they had internships where you could attend like fashion shows and I could be styling in the back end. And it really opened all these doors for me. I was 21 years old, traveling every month for free. I was meeting a lot of public figures and celebrities. I was attending parties and I was like, I love this lifestyle. And then I
Yeah.
realized it wasn't sustainable. It was fun for my age, and I realized I can't do this for the rest of my life. I want to be able to settle down and have a family, and I can't be traveling everywhere and having this 12-hour crazy schedule and then not working for a month. It was just very inconsistent. And I just got really lucky that when I did graduate, when this is when social media became a big thing, like
Yeah.
Instagram became huge. A lot of my friends became influencers or models, and I realized this could be a thing. My first big job that I ever had was working in fashion district as an e-commerce company. So back then we had to learn how to sell online, but this wasn't when we implemented social media yet. And then I came up, well, in my head, I was like, once social media becomes a big part of it, which I knew it would, I need to learn. I never went to school for marketing or social media at all. I just ended up working for a lot of jobs in the beginning where I was like, I could learn. I'm a fast learner. I'm resourceful. And I just got lucky that while Instagram was transitioning, so was I.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, that's crazy because so this is in the infancy of the social media. So it's such an interesting. I love to talk about social media.
Me too. I mean, I love it now. I feel like it opened so many doors, so many jobs. I mean, back then when I was applying, people didn't even know what a social media manager was, or content creator, or influencer marketing. And before, I was like, I could do social media for you, but I just applied for a lot of e-commerce positions because I knew e-commerce space was where social media was going to boom. And back then, a lot of my bosses didn't even know what social media was. So I suggested that we could open up an account for them, build up, a portfolio online, social media presence. And then from there, they realized, oh, we could actually sell on social media too. Um, and then I was in that e-commerce space for about a couple years, and I wanted to get out of it because I didn't really want to be in fashion or retail anymore. Because back then, this is when other companies like B2B, B2C companies were also thriving. And I was like, I want to grow with that. because they have
Yeah.
more budget. And I just like the fashion industry, I've been in it like part of my life. So I kind of wanted to expand and see what else I could do. And I just got lucky that I ended up working for one of the biggest PPE companies during the pandemic when it started. So we were the ones manufacturing and providing hand sanitizers all through the US. And from there, I
Wow.
became a chief marketing officer. Yeah. I was 25
Wow.
years old.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, you definitely put in the work though and got to that point. And then, so at what point did you decide that this wasn't for you, that you needed more?
Mm. When I was working 12-hour days and I just realized I'm 25 years old and I have no life. I have no personal life, no love life because work consumed that. During the time my mom passed, and it just made me change my whole perspective. My life just changed, it shifted. I had all these goals because I wanted to be like my mom. And then I just realized when she passed, all of it didn't matter. So I felt like that completely changed who I was. I wanted to be this person that was hardworking because that was who my mom was. And then before she passed, I looked at her whole life when she was alive and healthy that, oh, my mom's a hard worker. And then when I actually did a speech for her eulogy, I I noticed like that's not what I wanted my mom to be remembered for, not for her being hardworking or her being an entrepreneur or a boss. And it made me realize I don't want that either. When I would ask all my friends, like, what's one good quality about me that you like? And they always say, like, you're just a hard worker. And I was like, that's it? Like, nothing else? Like, and I'm sure
Yeah.
I am other things, but that was just the one thing that popped up in their minds. And it made me realize that that's not what I want to be remembered for. Like, I know this is a legacy that I could leave behind to my children and my
Yeah.
family, but I want to be known for being kind or smart or other things than just being a hard worker. Because I truly believe now in this social media space that we have to hustle. And I truly do not believe that. I believe you could enjoy life and still be successful. I don't want to be burnt out and I don't want to work all the time.
Ah, I mean, that's amazing. Like that you're saying that. It's such great advice. I think that the key moment when you realize with your mother passing that first of all, life is short. And then second of all, I love that you said, like, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? And, I think one of the toxic things in American culture is that we pride ourselves on, it's like the toxic, the grind, what is it? The grind
Yeah,
don't
never
stop, or like
stop.
the hustle doesn't stop. And it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's cool that you're working towards something, but in reality, like, what are you working towards? Like, what do you want to leave behind? Yes, leaving financial stability for your
Mhm.
family when you leave is nice. But like, what
Yes.
about the time that you could have spent and the memories? Like, to me, the memories are
Mhm.
everything. And we have such this, like I said, toxic like outlook on, priding ourselves on working 60, 80 hours a week, and our family suffers, and
Yeah,
a lot of times your health suffers, your mental health suffers. So I think that's awesome that
definitely.
you had, the unfortunate event of losing your mom, and my heart goes out to you for that.
Mhm.
But it is it's such a strong message to send to people that, you don't
Mhm.
have to trade necessarily time for money.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely one of those things like at a certain age or when you reach a certain point in your life or your career, you'll notice it. Because I've been on both ends of the spectrum where I was 25 years old working 12-hour days, making six figures for someone so young, but also like struggling in the beginning as an intern, not getting paid anything. And I realized no matter how much money I made, my time was always precious to me. And that's why
Yeah.
I quit my old job because I realized it's not worth it. There's no amount of money out there that is going to fulfill me except for doing what I love, which is spending time with my family, traveling, having alone time.
Yes.
And I'm glad that I noticed it when I was younger than when I am now. Because when I did start my business, one thing that I always tell my team is give yourself days off. Your goal here is not to work 8-hour days, it's never been efficient. You working 5 hours or every day, not efficient. And I tested it out in my business where I give them their own hours. They get to choose when they want to work. I do it based on projects and deadlines, and they are more efficient and get more work done than me having them clock in and clock out. And I give them autonomy in their position where they feel like they could also be leaders. I like the workforce of 9 to 5 just never worked out. And there's this law about it. I forgot what it was called, but it was like saying that if you're going to have someone work 8 hours a day, they're going to subconsciously fill up that 8 hours anyways, instead of just
Yes.
working.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love that you're saying this. And it's so ironic because my husband and I were having this conversation yesterday. I had just hired an assistant to try to like do the things that I need to not be doing. Like if I can't make art and have art to sell, then like, I can't do the thing that like makes the money. And so I needed an assistant to like package the art for me and then, to make content and things like that. That is so draining for me too. Mentally, it's draining. And so we were talking about, her hours and I can't remember. I wish I would have remembered the name of the book that he read, but there's, I think it's like called, I'm going to remember it and then I'm going to link it in the
Yeah, send
description
it
of
to
this show.
me.
It's like the 8 hour work day or something, another that my husband, and it's exactly what you're saying. Trading time for money
Mm,
is not the way that you should do it. Or maybe it's I can't remember. It's gonna drive me crazy. I will remember and then I will link it in the description for you guys to check it out.
yeah.
But like you said, he was saying, I think we need to get to a point where we give her tasks that need to have deadlines and
Mhm.
then she gets them done in the time, however, and then it gives you like this mindset of like, let me go ahead and get this work done so that, my to-do list is checked off. And like you said, not working an 8 hour day because subconsciously you're like, well, I got to be here anyways. So I'm just going
Yeah.
to,
Yeah, I mean, even for me, and I feel like I am very busy and my schedule's packed, I still do not work 8 hours a day. So
yeah.
I can expect my team to do the same. And
Yep.
there should be healthy breaks in between. Like, I just don't think ultimately, like, us as humans should be locked up in a room or just be in an office space. Like, we're meant to roam, we're meant to be curious beings. And I think that's why, especially during the pandemic, a lot of us were depressed because we had no choice but to be stuck at home and
Yeah.
we weren't out there like being with the earth and traveling and exploring new things. I mean, for me, and I tell my team this all the time, your goal here is not to work. Like your goal is to make something out of this. And I'm just hoping I could be that foundation for you to do other things or for you to like think of this as like a hobby for you. Like I just want to be so inspirational to my team or everybody that I come across that I I don't want this hustle culture. Like
Yeah.
you could be successful and be like the goal is to be productive, not to be busy.
Right.
Because anyone
Yeah.
can be busy and
Well, and
not
then
get any work done.
exactly. Well, and then I think that, the hustle culture is just, it's really kind of like, especially in the creative field. And you're in the creative field. So I feel like I can speak for you when I say this. Um, we artists pride themselves on staying up all hour of the nights. That's when all the creative juices happen and things like that. And when I went art full time, I was like, I'm not staying up till 2 and 3 o'clock at night because I like to sleep. So I switched my schedule to, being in the morning and not, spending hours upon hours just, in the art, breaking it up so that you are not consumed. And like you said, you're not like sheltered in this one little space working. And so I think it is so important that we balance the hustle mentality that it's important to, to work and to work for your dreams and, strive for those things, but to not burn yourself out. Cause I've been burnt out multiple times and it is not a fun place to be.
No. Yeah, me too. I feel like lately I've just been more burnt out. And even though when I'm self-aware about it, it still happens. And I
Yeah.
think it's normal, but also coming up with healthy coping mechanisms of when you are burnt out and when you could sense it, because it can be triggering to a lot of other things too. So, especially being a business owner, it's just really hard sometimes because like you're the one I'm the one that comes up with my own schedule and I
Yeah.
get really frustrated because I'm like, "Oh, I want to be productive, but maybe I shouldn't have booked a whole day of meetings."
Yeah. I know that feeling. Oh my goodness. So when did you have this like aha moment of I'm not working for the man anymore. I'm going to do my own thing. Did you have events that led up to that that was just like the icing on the cake for you? Or was this, I know that you said that you were already kind of like feeling like that, but did you have like an aha moment that was like, all right, I'm done?
Yeah, I mean, I never want to talk poorly about my past employer, but I just think the work culture wasn't what I wanted it to be in that moment. And considering that we were all very stressed because we were the only company at the time to be providing these hand sanitizers, I think it
Yeah.
was given that everyone who was working there was overwhelmed. And like I said, I was already really frustrated about my work hours and I just felt like I didn't have a life. I just knew I wasn't fulfilled and happy. And I just kept thinking, like, okay, this is a very stable job that I have, and I have a beautiful apartment, a new car. I'm stable for my age. If I leave now, I'm starting over, and that's the scariest part, especially during a pandemic when people were losing their jobs.
Yeah.
So I just knew in my head, you have to just be really thoughtful about this, like be mindful about it, because back then I'm very impulsive. I was like, I don't care. I'll figure it out, and I usually always do. And it wasn't until I had just one meeting where I just had this epiphany where I was like, if my boss doesn't value me and I'm unhappy, that's more than enough for me to leave. I don't need to have a big argument with her. I don't need to have something horrible happen at work. Me being unhappy is enough for me right now to leave because life is short and I want to be happy. That's my ultimate goal. And then I knew
Yes.
that me being happy would just reflect on a lot of things in my life. Me being hurt and unhappy made me hurt a lot of people too. And I just realized that because I was so frustrated with my job and I was so stressed, it affected everybody else. Like I didn't want
Oh,
to see anybody, I didn't want to do anything. I was just not the person I wanted to be around.
yeah.
And I mean, I can't believe I did this because I'm like shaking even still thinking about it. But just one day out of the meeting, I just walked up and left.
Oh my
I
gosh. You were
didn't
just
say
like, I'm
anything.
done.
It was like a big fuck you moment. I was like, "Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I did that." And
Deuces.
I didn't even say anything. I just walked up. I was like, "Thank you for this opportunity. I think this is like just my time to go." I walked out and she thought I was joking. So she was like, "Oh, she's just okay. Like, she'll come back." She tries to contact me a couple weeks later saying like, "Hey, you haven't been at work. Are you gonna come back?" And I was like, "Wait, I am confused because no call, no show probably means that I quit my job."
Yeah.
But she really just wanted me back. And I was like,
Wow.
"No." And then she threatened me because I think she was really hurt that I left. And so she kind of threatened me saying, "Oh, you're leaving at the worst time. You're not going to get a job during
Yeah.
this pandemic." And I was like, "You're right. You're definitely right, but I'd rather not work with you and struggle than like be happy
Yeah.
somewhere else and be
Yeah.
okay."
Yeah.
Um, and that's really how it started. I just panicked, but then that panic turned into passion and drive. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I have no choice but to be successful because this was also the time that my mom was like, my dad was really depressed. It was just us. So I looked at my dad and I looked at everybody else in my life and I realized I have no choice but to be successful. But not only apart from that, but this is what I wanted. And the way that my business came about was I tried applying for a lot of freelance positions because I knew there's no way during that time I could just get another job as a chief marketing officer because that was really the time where companies were shutting down, furloughing their employees. So just
Yeah.
realistically, I just knew I had to work my way up. And I knew that if I had to do that, I would just do it with my own business and not working for anybody else.
Ah, I mean, that's incredible. That is so incredible. I think, during the pandemic, I'm sure I can speak for a majority of the nation and the world. We've all done a lot of growing, hopefully, since then. And I've heard so many people, it was like a blessing in disguise. It's kind of,
Yes.
like they lost their jobs or that, like you said, they got furloughed and they were just like, I have to do something. Like, here is the perfect opportunity for
Yeah.
me to go after this thing that I've always wanted to go after. And that's when you really started seeing a lot of artists come out of the woodworks, a lot of small businesses come out of the woodworks. And so I just think it's incredible that you took a time that was very crazy for you, I'm sure, with your mother and then the job, and you're just like, oh my gosh. And then, you just hit the ground running. And I think that's fantastic. And now you have a successful business and you're hiring other women, I think it's amazing.
I used to make all this joke all the time when I used to do past like articles saying, "Oh yeah, I wish I had this inspirational story," because I never really fully got to speak about on it. But ultimately, I made this joke that I just did it out of spite because I just wanted to prove so badly that I could do this without her, and it just ended up being the most successful thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's like the best like sock it to you moment that you could have is like you're saying that I'm not going to be able to find anything or do anything. Well, I'm going to show you. Like I'm going to show you. So I think
Yeah,
that's awesome.
exactly.
Oh my goodness. And then, of course, I think you have such an inspirational story, and especially one for women and then women of color, just realizing that like you can just, if you want it, just go after it. And I'm sure it was hard. You mentioned in your email to me that it wasn't the easiest thing. I'm sure you had a lot of struggles, but I think it's what you're doing is incredible.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
So I did have a few questions that that was that's popping into my mind because we talk about social media and marketing and how it's like literally that. I mean, that's how things sell. I know a lot of people don't even have um, cable or they're watching commercials. I know for myself, we don't have cable, so the I'm getting all of my ads and things online. And I remember a time not too long ago when people thought that social media was crazy, that being like having a YouTube channel and like that being your job, and you see it, you tell your kids don't spend all your time on the
Oh, yeah.
electronics. There's you can't do that when you grow up. And now you
It's
can
full-time
be
job.
all of that now. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes,
So
I
with
really
your
love it.
experience with that, yeah. So with your experience with social media, you're doing a creative marketing. Tell me exactly what that is. What does that entail?
Yeah, so I actually do a full service of marketing. So I do social media management, web development, influencer outreach, content creation, because back then when I was working, I realized it was a full department that you would have to hire a photographer, videographer, content creator, like copywriter. And I realized there's not a lot of agencies out there that provide the full service for a really cheap price. And
Yeah,
I just got really lucky that I realized that during the pandemic, people couldn't hire employees anymore. But if I could split that in half, because they still needed the service, instead of them having in house employees, I could pitch myself as an agency where they hire me and then I have a full team to support them. And that's really how I ended up expanding this because not only was it a really good pitch of you're right, I can't afford a full time employee anymore, but I could afford an agency who's going to be half the price of that, but still maintain all the work. So that's really how I strategically like built my business like
yeah,
during the pandemic. Um, yeah. So it's just really weird how everything came about. But
yeah.
it is definitely a blessing in disguise. And I definitely was aware to know that social media and marketing is huge and it's going to stay here and it's going to keep expanding and growing. Because right now, I've noticed a lot of jobs are basically in the social media or marketing realm. And now it's extending to advertisement, copywriting. TikTok is huge. So now people
Yes.
need video editors and TikTok creators.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy. I just like I'm a millennial, so I grew up when like there was none of this. I tell my oldest daughter all the time when she gets grounded and loses her television or her phone, I'm like, when I was your age, I didn't have any of this. So how do you
Exactly.
think that I passed my time, without electronics?
Yes.
And so just me seeing where like there was, nothing. And then, I remember when MySpace was a thing. And then I know a lot of people even built their businesses off of MySpace, which is crazy
Yes.
to me. And then, I remember when Facebook was, I think, for college kids. And I was like, I'm never going to get a Facebook. That's silly. And so Instagram and then TikTok. I bucked TikTok for so long because it made me have to step out of my comfort zone and be on camera. I'm used to just taking pictures of art and not having to have my face shown. And then TikTok forced me. And then there's people that are literally making a living, like you said.
Yes.
Businesses are needing content creators, and if that's something that you really enjoy. Like you can totally, I don't even, and like, I don't, there's no schooling for that really, is there?
Not really. I mean, now when I'm talking to my younger cousins who are in high school or college, they definitely have marketing classes.
Yeah.
But when I ask more in depth of what they're learning, it's still not enough for when you're actually out there interning or
Yep.
getting hands-on experience because it's still fairly new. There's really no data out there to prove like how social media is working unless you've been in the industry for so long.
Yeah. I think I took a marketing class in high school and it consisted of how to write a resume, how to make a PowerPoint.
Which you probably don't do anymore. Like
I
I don't remember
don't. I
doing
don't think
that.
I might have made a PowerPoint one time for some chiropractors that I worked for. I honestly, and then I don't even know that my knowledge of the resume education that I got was ever relevant for me. I think by the time it became important to have resumes. You could Google and find a template and kind of,
Yes.
fix it how you need to do it that way. So yeah, that's interesting that the marketing it's different. I'm sure it's a lot different from when I was in high school, but still
Yeah.
not with the times yet because the internet is where it's at. And then with the pandemic, um, everything went virtual. You
Yes.
know, interviews went virtual. Phone convers. I mean,
Meeting.
you didn't have phone conversation. No meeting. You have the virtual meetings, and then getting your groceries delivered. Like it was
Yes.
crazy for me. But
It
it
was so
also
different.
it makes you realize though how important it is to be able to adapt to change
Mhm.
and how you can also take that change and use it for your advantage. And that's what you did.
Yes, exactly, yes.
That's amazing. I think it's so
Really
amazing.
weird to me.
Yes, and so, you went through some crazy things with your job and then, the unfortunate passing of your mother. If you could just look back at your younger self who, maybe was struggling in that mindset, "What am I gonna do?" And, like, seeing where you are now and the success that you have now, what's something that you would say to a younger version of yourself who was in the thick of that struggle if you had just a few moments with them?
I wish I coulda just hugged her, honestly. I think she just needed that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us don't really are in tune with, like, our younger selves, like, our inner child,
Yeah.
and I think that's why I became so unhappy is because she ultimately wanted something so different than what I was providing for her. So if I could go back and just speak to her, I would have just given her a hug, and I think that would have been enough. There's really nothing that I could have said to myself that would have changed the course of my life. I think, I am where I am because of these circumstances or whether it's God's blessing or the universe, but
Yeah.
I think I would have just wanted her to reach out to have support during that time.
Yeah.
Because that was around the time where like my mental health wasn't well. Again, like I just wasn't self-aware. I was really like self-sabotaging a lot of things. And I think it would have just really fixed it and I could have made smarter choices for myself or other people if I just had like the support, like the emotional support that I needed. Because back then I just pushed everyone away, so I was alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it also affected me personally because we were already alone during the pandemic. Then I pushed myself further out. So it's just really me sitting in my own thoughts. I really wish she could have known that, like, it'll eventually be okay. You're going to figure it out. Like, it's just a tough time, but you're going to get through it. And because of that tough time, I ended up just being where I am. I'll never go back and change anything.
I think that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Would you have advice for somebody that is maybe in a similar situation that you found yourself in when you were working hours that were just not the most healthy
Mhm.
mentally and physically? I know that we're kind of in there's this shift with employees versus employers right now. A lot of people are like, there's jobs out there, but nobody wants to work them. But then a lot of the employees are like, you know what? Like, I don't think I'm getting paid enough,
Yeah,
and I'm not doing that job anymore for that. Like, there's just this it's like an employee's world right now
right.
instead of an employer's. So, would you have advice for anyone who may be finding themselves in a situation, work-wise they're just struggling?
Yeah, I mean, I can't assume that everyone wants to be in my position and wants to be a business owner. I know some people don't want that, but I guess the best advice overall in general that I could give is just find a purpose, no matter what that is. There has to be a reason for you to wake up and just love what you do, whether that's God's purpose or your own or what ultimately fulfills you, find that and try to build your life around that and nothing else. Don't do it for money. Don't do it for what your parents say. Don't do it because of this is where, societal pressure of being there. Do it because you're waking up and you ultimately really, really love your life. And everything else, no, like I cannot express this enough, will fall into place if you do things based on love.
Yeah. Ah, that's great advice. I know because again, like I said, we're definitely in this limbo or like there's a shift happening
Yeah.
with employees versus employers. And so you being in that position of understanding what an employee needs and what they want and the unfairness of a lot of, I guess the word that I'm looking for is a lot of employees feel like they are replaceable, that
Mhm.
they're expendable. And so, how important is it as a boss for you, because you've been in that position, to make your employees feel like they are valued?
Yeah, so I tell my team all the time. Well, first of all, I don't ever really call them my employees either. I call them my
Yeah,
team so they feel like, they're not just there to just work and that's it. I always and one thing that I've noticed to make them happy is I always communicate with them. Like, what is it that you want to do? Where's your goal? Like, I want to know what your goals are working for me or in general so then I could make sure I could provide that for you. And second, I always tell them to like don't consider this like I don't want you to just come into my job thinking it's like a 9 to 5 and you're only just doing the work for the salary. I always try to make them feel valued by listening to them, which is something that a lot of bosses or employers don't do is listen to their team. Your team will tell you when they're unhappy or they're overwhelmed or stressed out or burnt out and you have to listen to them
yeah,
because they're I tell them all the time I could not run this business without you. Like this is our business because you all your hard work that you have done led me to where I am. So treat it like it's also your business too. I give them incentives like to stay like I give them mental health days every month where you don't have to tell me anything. Just take the day off because you need it. You work hard.
yeah,
I give them retainer pay where every time we get a new client, because I want them to feel like they're growing when my business is growing. That they also get raises every time we get new clients. Yeah, we have open communication. Not only do I talk to them like a boss, but I also like have HR in place because I care about my team and I want them to be happy. So even now, because I notice, like, especially because we're all remote and virtual,
yeah.
I asked them, I was like, what do you need? Like, how are you guys? Like, do you guys need free therapy or free gym sessions? I could provide that for you because I'm only going to be successful if my team is happy and healthy.
Yes. I think that's a great like way to look at it, cuz I know when I've worked for a lot of small businesses before I quit and started to pursue art full time. And I always remember some of the smaller businesses, the employers were better, but better than corporate. I have worked for corporate when I was a teenager, so like a drugstore. So I do have kind of, but not like corporate like what you
Yeah.
were doing. No, nothing like that. But I do understand the whole, you feeling like you're scared to ask for a day off, or if the weather's bad and you can't get into work, you're like, oh gosh, are they gonna, or if something happens. I remember I worked for a small business, that was a veterinary hospital, and we had a manager that if you were late more than 5 minutes twice in a week, you would get sent home. And then if you were more than 5 minutes late once in a week, you would get sent home. And then you were only allowed to like miss some. It was like being in school. It was crazy. And I just remember always feeling like this pressure,
Mhm.
like, what if I get a flat tire? And then is she going to believe me? Because I feel like I'm going to have to take a picture and send it to her of me on the side of the road. I don't
And
know,
they
like
still won't
just
believe
that.
you.
Yeah. And then if I'm not feeling well and I don't, want to go to work,
Mhm.
you're scared to like call in sick. Are they going to believe me? I remember one time they made me have a doctor's note, and I'm like, but I don't feel sick enough to go to the doctor. I just don't feel
Need
well
a
enough
day
to come to
off.
work.
Yes.
So I do think, there are some companies out there that are even big corporate companies that I think do well. But I think probably one of the biggest struggles, I kind of went off on a tangent. I don't even remember where I was
No,
going with this.
I
But
love hearing
I think one of the biggest struggles is that employees feeling like they are not valued and that they
it.
are replaceable. If you mess up, you
Mhm.
know, you're gone. And like I wanted to touch too on what you said. Like if your employees are not happy, your business can't grow. And that was one of the things that I have worked for chiropractors for quite a few years. And they always made sure that, like, do you guys need stuff? They would give us bonuses when the office would grow. If we, met our patient goals, you get bonuses. And so I think it's a beautiful thing that you're doing. And I think you're setting a precedence for small businesses and big businesses on how important it is to treat your employees. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's
awesome
still a
job.
learning curve. I mean, a lot of my team do feel like they're still replaceable. They talk to me about it. Sometimes when they make minor mistakes, they'll reach out and say, like, I don't want to get fired. Like, am I
Yeah.
okay? And I'm like, you're not gonna get fired. Like, it's open communication here. Like,
Yeah.
if you do something wrong, obviously I'll reprimand you, but I'm not here to yell at you. I'm not here to belittle you. Like,
Yeah.
your job is always important. What you do, like even the minimal tasks that you do, like mean a lot. I also try to make it known that whenever they show up to work, I always say, thank you for showing up today. Like, thank you for working today.
Yeah.
At the end of every shift, I tell them, like, great work.
Good job.
Like, even if, and those little things, like, even just acknowledging, like, hey, you showed up, you did good, you finished your task, those little things mean so much because you don't get that. I've noticed working, the only time I've ever been like awarded something was when I made a really big sale,
Yeah.
but none of my bosses previously ever said, "Hey, like thanks for just showing up to work," or "Thanks for being here," or "Hey, you did good. Like you've been working so much, so I just want to acknowledge like you did a lot of hours this week." Nothing, and I realized I
Yeah.
need that validation. Like it's also a love language, like words of affirmation. Like you're doing great. And I tell my team all the time too, like regardless if you think you're dispensable, like I don't hire people because of how talented you are. I hire people based on your passion and your drive to want to be here. Because I could train anybody to do what I'm doing. I
Right.
could teach anybody to do social media, but I
Yeah.
cannot teach you how to love what you do and love it and be
Yeah.
passionate about it.
Yeah.
That's what
Most
it is for.
definitely. Oh, that's great. I remember the chiropractors that I worked for often, multiple times a week. At the end of the day, he'd be like, "Good job, guys," and I just remember like at the end of the day, I'm like, you know what? We did do a good job today. Like, we helped a lot of people today. Or I remember even some of the littlest things when I would have an answer to a question that he had, he would be like, "You're so smart." And
Oh,
genuinely, and I'm like, "You're a doctor telling me that I'm smart? Like,
oh, thank you.
thanks."
You sound so wholesome and nice.
Yeah. So like I just, I just recently hired an assistant. And so me thinking of how my whole life, how I wanted to be treated by an employer, like I have to remember that. And like you said, I like how you said team. And that I think that's what a lot of companies are missing is the team.
Yeah,
And um it just all around makes life and because we are spending a majority of our life working, so why
yeah,
not have it be somewhere where you feel valued and happy.
exactly. That's
Ah,
all that it really is, because you are gonna spend the rest of your life working, whether you work for someone or have your business. So just build this space or community where you feel valued and safe, and this is what is fulfilling you. Because if not, it's just not worth it. It's a long life to live unhappy.
yeah, I mean you're saying everything that I agree with and that and things that I value. I think it's amazing. Oh my gosh. You have such a crazy, amazing story. I can't wait to share it with everyone. I do want to ask you one question that I like to ask all of my guests. So we're going to jump right into that. We like to talk about power on the show and not thinking of that as a bad thing. How would you think of, or how would you describe the type of power that you try to step into every day?
Ooh, that is a good question. Ugh. See, for me. I wish I could just answer it so confidently, but because to me, even though I have been successful, I still get a lot of um, like this syndrome where I just feel like I shouldn't be here, like imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And so I always have to tell myself every day that I wake up, like, I did this. Like, and regardless of if people don't believe me or if there's still things I need to work on, that it's me. Like, I didn't get help from anybody else. This is my struggle. This is my story, my beliefs. So I think every day I just wake up and I'm just so grateful for that. And I feel like that makes me feel powerful that I didn't have help. And because of all of my struggles that I went through, that I still got to be where I am. And I don't want anything bad that's ever happened to me to just be like, oh, that's what knocked me down and I couldn't do it. So
Yeah.
to me, power would just be just getting up every day and continuing. Like, and I truly believe this too, because past year, when I noticed a lot of my friends were getting married or having kids or starting businesses and making millions, and I also had to be self-aware enough to realize, like, even if you just survived that year, even if you just woke up every day and you just made it, that's powerful. And I think that's something that we need to always just be mindful of. You don't need to do something very elaborate or huge just for you to be like, I'm just you making it is enough. And that's powerful.
Yes. Ah, I love that. We all, too often find ourselves comparing our success, our progress, our lives to other people, friends, family, and then of course, especially influencers on social media. It's very easy to get into that toxic mindset of I'm not enough, or I haven't done enough, or I'm not working hard enough. So I think that what you said right there is just incredible and powerful, empowering. Just realizing that for some people, just surviving the pandemic like is incredible, because there's a lot of people that did not get that, that were not that fortunate. And then every day you get out of bed, that's something to be proud of. That's
Yes,
awesome.
exactly.
Fantastic advice. Oh my gosh. Well, I want to thank you so much, Danielle, for being on the show and sharing your incredible story of transformation with us. I cannot wait to share you on with my platform. And I'm also going to link all of your social medias below so that anyone listening to the show can give you a follow through your journey. And of course, check out what you've got going on. But thank you so much
Thank
for
you
being
so
on.
much. I really enjoyed this.
Oh, yay. Thank you guys so much for listening in today. And I want to thank Danielle again for sharing her incredible story of transformation with us. If you personally felt connected to the story and you would like to purchase one of the limited edition prints that goes along with it as a reminder to step into your own power. Also, print sales help support the podcast and keep us going each week. You can get those on our website at iempower.club. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at iempowerclub. And lastly, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss next week's episode of I Empower.